Hello, we are live, I think. If you can see me, then please say hello. So I'm just going to pop this up. Please introduce yourself in the chat. If you can see us, hopefully we are live. I've got Joy V with me at the moment because Maressa's just having a little technical hitch. So hopefully she's going to pop on in a moment. So, oh, we're getting some comments in. Okay. Nobody seems to be here yet. Okay. A few people are here. Just chuck in the comment if you can see me. Oh, yay.
There we are.
Joy Margaret says, hello, Joy.
I can see that.
She can see us. Yay. Okay, great. Yay. Dana's here. She says she can see us. Okay, fantastic. Okay. Yay. And Katie Pep Talk, first book launch. That's very exciting. Okay. Well, I'm going to do some intros just because Maressa's not here. She was meant to be doing this. Oh, hang on. She's back. Hello. Are we working?
Hey.
Yay! Okay,
I'm
fantastic.
Hello.
We're back. Sorry. Have you been sitting there for a minute? Okay. We might have a few freezes.
It's all this sort of atmospheric lighting. This is very atmospheric.
It's nice. I like it. You've got a nice wardrobe in the background.
Yeah, I think we just walked in. Actually,
okay, great. Well, I'll introduce Maressa while we're waiting for her to.
I'm so excited, Natasha. Yeah. So are you going to introduce everyone?
Yeah. Oh, look, we've got lots of comments coming back here. Love it. Okay, great. So here we go. So we've got Catherine in Sheffield. We've got Katie in Australia. We've got Dana from Arizona. That's exciting.
Wow.
So.
Oh no. Oh no, she's pressed the wrong button. It's lovely to see you all here and welcome to Natasha's book launch. Where did you go, darling? We missed you.
I don't know. Am I back yet?
You're back. You're back.
I just disappeared then. I don't know what's going on. Oh, well, never mind. Thank you, Joy. So, yeah, so I've got Joy V with me. Joy is a children's book author, and she's got, have you got 7 books under your belt now, Joy?
7, yeah, at the moment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're lovely faith-filled books. And we've got Maressa, and Maressa also writes faith-filled fiction. And Maressa, have you got Walled City with you tonight? What have you got anything? Or did it all go horribly wrong? No.
You were out for a minute. It's probably trying to link Arizona up to Australia. The whole thing sort of goes.
Never mind. We'll leave the comments for a minute. Okay. Yeah. So Maressa, I think, has brought along a couple of books, perhaps, or a book to talk about as well. So does anyone have, if you've got a drink with you, I didn't even put this in the invite, but does anyone, apparently you're meant to bring a drink to a book launch. Has anyone got anything with them? If you have, then you've got water.
No, it's not water. It's actually mead.
Absolutely.
I just bought some mead with me.
It's mead. So
rather large glass of mead.
Pop in the comments if you've got any drinks with you or any cake with you. I've got honey and lemon because I've got a cold.
I've got blue wine.
So we're all very exciting here tonight. Water. Katie's got some water. Great. I'm glad to see that we're all water only as well. We've got some waters. I love it.
Which is why it's in a mug, because I needed to warm it up.
Yeah, well, I knew mine wouldn't stay warm. So anyway, shall we talk about Maressa, have you got any questions for me to introduce us, if we can hear you?
Oh, Gemma's got hot chocolate. Dr. Pepper. That sounds so American. I always think of Dr. Pepper as some sort of like American drink. Although you can buy them here.
Oh yeah. So we've got some hot chocolate going on. That's cool. Oh, Dr. Pepper. Yeah, I can see that now. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I was just going to talk for a couple of minutes about the publishing journey, why I'm here and what we're doing. And Maressa was going to ask me a couple of questions if she's got them. if she's not going to freeze. But perhaps, have you got any? Or does Joy got any questions?
I can ask you a question if I'm not
Go
freezing.
for it. You're not freezing. Go for it. Other than me.
Excellent. So, can you tell us, Natasha, the things that everybody wants to know when they talk to an author is, how long did it take you to write this book?
Now, the question is, are you referring to The Wanderer Reborn, which we're talking about tonight, or are you referring to both the books?
Well, I think it's quite a journey, isn't it? So tell us about both of them together.
Yeah, so I originally wrote The Wanderer Scorned and The Wanderer Reborn were one book just called The Wanderer. And that's how it started off. That was the original title. And then that took me about 5 months to write the whole thing. So it was through the lockdown in 2020. And strangely enough, with children at home, I actually had more time on my hands, which doesn't make much sense looking back at it. But I think it's because I wasn't running around to clubs and doing school runs and all that sort of thing, and so I was my day was quite structured, so I tended to write early in the morning. So I wrote about 160,000 words, which will mean something to authors but probably not to anybody else, in about 5 months. But then of course it needed tons of editing, absolutely tons. So then it was a case, and Maressa and I were going to talk about where we first met, I think. Do you remember, Maressa? No, she's still not here. Okay. So Maressa and I first met in Cambridge at a conference, and I just completed the books, and I didn't realize how much work they were going to need to get out. And so I went along to this writing conference, really, really excited about finding out more about publishing. And then got basically told there that I couldn't publish 160,000 word book in this day and age. Apparently that's not normal. So but it was really lovely because I met Maressa because she was oh, we've got Lena here. Hi Lena. I met Maressa because she basically had put out, I'm going to be in Cambridge at this conference, is anyone else going to be there? And I didn't know anybody, and so I replied to her message saying, I'm going to be there, I don't know anyone. And basically when I turned up not knowing anybody, completely and utterly terrified, she took me under her wing, and she was really kind, and she looked after me for the day. So yeah, so she has a special place in my heart. So that's where I found out I need to split the books. That was a real tangent, sorry. And so it ended up, we needed to split it, and then it was a case of figuring out how to publish them separately. So
so another question on the back of that is, where did the inspiration for the stories come from? Because they're not your usual stories. They're not a boy meets girl. They're not a usual biblical fiction. And this is the story of Esther. You've really taken the stories and kind of made them your own. So where did, Marissa's gone. Where did that come from? Where did that kind of just gem of an idea come from?
So I was thinking about writing some Christian stories, and I've been reading some biblical fiction, which is where you take a Bible story and you expand on it into something fictional. And I'd been reading some, and then I just sort of thought, I think, I don't know why, I thought, I think I could probably do that. And whether that was right, we're getting moved around. This is exciting. Yeah. We don't know how to use this tech at all.
I just feel very much closer to you.
There we go. And so I started praying about what to write about, and I really didn't know, and for a good sort of 6 months or so I was praying about what to write about, and I just sort of had the idea that I'd love to help people fall in love with sort of different people, and particularly with Jesus through fiction. And I know that when you hear a story, it's something that sticks in your head, isn't it? Whereas often when we're reading nonfiction, it can sort of, we think it's great when we're reading it, and then it's gone 5 seconds later. So hey, she's back. So I started praying about that, and then really in that January of that 2020 lockdown, I woke up one morning with an idea, and I thought my
bless you, Marissa.
Our internet is against Christian fiction. That's fun. Yeah. So I had the idea, and and we got. I just started writing, really, and I really wanted to think about how we are not all we're not all really very different, and sometimes we can we can classify people as some people are really bad people and some people are semi-bad people and some people are really quite good people. And what was on my heart was that Jesus describes us as all being the same before God. And yes, okay, some sins are perhaps really awful, and I'm not denying that. But we all need God's mercy in our lives. And so why not explore the very first murderer as a character? And I just sort of woke up with that idea. And so, I hope that was God inspired. Certainly as I started writing, every time I was struggling with something, I was praying and he would give me scripture to help me out with the ideas. So that was really exciting.
So Marissa's written in the chat that she loved how real the characters were and so easy to identify with. So how did you develop those characters to make them just so real?
I don't know. I just, whenever I'm writing, I just put myself in that place, and it might be because I've got an acting background, I'm not sure, but I just sort of am able to put myself into that place. And so I literally just sort of see what the character sees. I pretend I am that character. I see what they see and I describe what I'm seeing, and that's the way that I write. And then it's a case of editing it and developing it and polishing it. And so I don't know if that's the right way to write, but that's what I've done. Then I think
it's working really well. It's working really well. So from my personal point of view, I read your first one when it came out, and I have to say I was really struck by it. I found that those characters actually lived with me for a couple of months afterwards, because they're just they were like Marissa said, they were so real. They were so real. And I think what amazed me was how I came back and reconsidered that first story all over again. We see in our mind and we see in Sunday school pictures Adam and Eve being kicked out the garden, and it's almost as if God stays in the garden and kicks Adam and Eve out. But that's actually not what we read in scripture. When Eve gives birth, she says, I gave birth with the help of the Lord. And he really is still very, very active in their lives. And your books brought that through so beautifully, and brought through this idea of family worship, which I found really, really encouraging. And I have to say that after I read the first one, I was like, oh no, now I've got to wait for the second one.
But fortunately, because I'd written it all in one go, I didn't have to wait
too long, which is such a relief. But I have to say that the second one I possibly liked even more than the first. It's something to do with the main character and just how up close and personal you got with her. And maybe because she's a female character, I don't know, but I could really, really identify with her and feel her pain and feel her confusion and feel sometimes how lost she felt and sometimes how happy she felt. And yet there's still these questions in the background. And I was very, very moved by it. Very moved.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to read a little bit from the book in a little while. So that will give hopefully the people who are in the chat a chance to hear if they haven't read it already. So Maressa, are you with us? Have you got anything to say? Are you just going to sit in the chat? I think so. Is that? I feel really bad about this.
Sort of here.
Oh dear. So, okay.
So Marissa did write in the chat. She did write a question.
Oh, sorry.
Tonight.
I haven't got that page open. Hang on. Okay. Oh, okay.
She wrote in the chat. She said, "Do you write stories straight through, or like some writers add dialogue and jokes later?"
It says that I've written that. I don't know why it's
she's you. She's channeling you right now.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm asking myself this question. So, do I write the story straight through, and then add dialogues and jokes later? Yes, both. So I wrote the story straight through. I didn't plan it very thoroughly. Obviously, with The Wanderer, Scorned, at least, it was quite obvious what the story was because everyone knows the ending. So because it's the Cain and Abel story, in case anyone here doesn't know, and everyone knows what happens. And so that was a challenge with that one. But it was a case of how on earth am I going to get Cain from A to B, and from a place where he's actually a normal person who has a faith in God, and and get him to the place where he kills his brother, where he's capable of that, and what might that faith journey look like? And then with Reborn, really, I had the idea, and I can't tell you anything about the plot because it will completely ruin the book for those who haven't read it. But I had the idea that, you know, where I knew where I wanted to go, and then I just wrote there. And I didn't know all of the steps along the way, and I didn't use any of these fancy plotting things. I just wrote my way there, and it just came to me as I went. But then certainly I went back and I changed things. So I added in dialogues later. It's quite funny. She adds, did I add in jokes later? I wasn't aware there were any jokes. Are there any jokes? Put in the chat if you found a joke. I think there might be one. There we go. We've got a few more cats. So Lana says, I love both of them. I was so excited about the first one and excited to find out there would be a sequel. Oh, glorious day. That's very kind. Thank you. I absolutely love the second one even more. And then Katie says, I think the second book follows the writer's rule, show, don't tell, more than the first book. This because your second narrator was easier to work with. Or did you learn that along the way? Yeah, so I'm not sure whether I learned. I did hear about it later on when I was the show don't tell rule. I did hear about it later on when I was editing, but I didn't know anything about it to start with. And the vast majority of the book is fairly similar to as it was. It was just polished up, really. So I think I probably just did that naturally. But I think that might be because I was in first person, and it's possibly a lot easier to do this in first person than it is in third person. Because in third person, you're more describing what's going on. And so it can be harder to actually not tell the reader. So yes, the second narrator was easier to work with. And I think the first reason is that she's a woman. so Arc 1, the Rondor Reborn, is her story. She's a woman, whereas Kane is obviously a man. And that just brings a lot of challenges writing as a man. And so I had to run the first draft through my husband, and he had to say, oh no, a man wouldn't say that at various points. And I had to change things. So yeah, so that was really useful. And then he would say, well, a man would definitely think about this at that point in time. I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it. I'll filter it slightly.
That's great feedback.
So it was easier, but also I think just because Kane, you know, further along in the book, in The Wanderer Scorned, he is essentially quite unlikable. And so it's really quite hard to keep a reader with you when you're writing about somebody whose character is denigrating and getting worse. And it's quite hard. So that was a real challenge. And I think I set myself, for a debut novel, I set myself a bit of a big challenge.
Yeah, it's not what most folk would have chosen as a debut, is it?
So yeah, let's write about an anti-hero in the first person. That's easy.
And humanize it somehow. Yeah, well done with that.
So I think it is one of those quite difficult literary things to do, to write anti-hero in the first person. And I thought, well, why not? It'd be fun.
Well, there doesn't seem to be any more questions right now in the chat. So you said you had a reading for us.
Yeah, so we'll do the reading, and then if you think of other questions as I'm reading, then do chuck them in the chat, and we'll do another Q&A later on. I did have a banner for that, but we've been doing some more Q&As anyway. There you go. Ta-da! So I've got a first reading. So I'm going to read from the very beginning. We'll start at the very beginning. Good place to start. It's not actually the very beginning though, because there is a prologue, and I'm not going to read that. So we're going to start chapter 1. And if you've got your drinks ready, you might need something a little bit stronger than water, because it's quite sad. Are you ready, ladies? Do we have any men here? I don't know if we do. Okay, let's go for it. So this is The Wanderer Reborn, the second book. Countless summers have been and gone since the day that changed my life. Even so, the shock of finding the bearer of half my soul caught in the twisted thorns still hits me every time I picture his face. Though some memories have faded over time and the outlines of his features have grown indistinct, that image remains, those beautiful eyes turned lifeless. I had known something was wrong. I had felt it in every fibre of my being long before I found him, not just because my older brothers were unaccounted for, but because I sensed a part of myself was missing. Havel and I had been entwined since our conception. We knew everything about each other, and there was nothing hidden between us. We had rarely been apart for more than a few days, the only exception being those weeks when he had tended the sheep on the northern plains, the winter before this tragedy happened. Those weeks had been miserable for me, but they were nothing compared to the torment to follow. When Cain was condemned at the sacrifice and fled, I, along with everyone else, had searched everywhere I could think my eldest brother might be. As dark settled in, Havel and I had collapsed together in the hut, but after a short bout of restless sleep, I woke to find Havel missing. Setting out with Chaim, we had walked as far as the forest together before splitting up. Chaim entered the woods while I continued towards the fields. Havel would not give up looking until he found Cain. I knew that instinctively. Yet there was no sign of either of them. When the weight in my chest and stomach grew so intense that I could barely walk without it dragging me down, I fell to my knees, and I cried out for Elohim to have mercy. I cried out for him to show me where Cain and Havel might be. As I lifted my tear-stained eyes, a ray of sunlight shone through the haze, lighting up a section of tall grass in the distance. I ran as fast as my weak legs could carry me, stumbling over ditches in the ground and treading through thistles, in my desperation to get to the light before it faded. Upon reaching the general area of grass where he lay, my soul guided me the rest of the way, drawing me irresistibly to its other half. Part of me wishes I'd never prayed that prayer, and that Elohim had continued to protect me from a sight that would forever wound me. Yet finding Havel alone gave me precious moments with him that I would not have had if someone else had brought his slumped body home. If Elohim hadn't led me to the spot, I doubt we would have found him before his body had begun to rot in the dust. That would have been a far worse sight, and I would not have been able to cradle him and weep for him as I did in those moments. So the better part of me was grateful for that answered prayer. When I first found Havel, I couldn't believe what I saw. Even though I'd known something was desperately wrong, even though I'd already felt the hollow of loss, nothing could have prepared me for the sight of it. His face was so different without the vivacity that had always characterized his being. I threw myself beside him, opening his eyelids wider, striving to find him. Yet there was no sparkle there, no joy and no fire. Lying in the thorns was a body that used to hold the one I loved, yet I knew that my brother was somewhere else. Suddenly he was lost to me. He'd left me. He'd gone as swiftly as the wind blows through the trees. My soul ached at his betrayal. I set about untangling the thorns from his body, desperately thinking that somehow if I released him, he might come back to me. I started with those thorns piercing his brow. His lifeblood had dried in drips down his face, some settling on his eyelids, some on his cheeks, some had run down and filled the cavern in his ear before drying out. His soft brown curls were stuck in clumps to his ears, where they had mingled with it. His body was now hard and stiff, and despite the earth's heat, cold. His coldness mirrored the chill in my bones. Once he was free from the thorns, I tried to move his body away from them. Wrapping my arms around his chest, I dragged him towards me, into a patch of grass containing fewer weeds. Then, allowing his back to rest upon my knees, I moved one of my arms to cradle his neck. By then my tears were flowing, and blood was seeping from my own torn hands. As he failed again to stir, I begged him to return to me. My tears fell onto his face and mixed with his blood, causing it to run further. Deep, wretched sobs convulsed my entire body as I sank my head into his neck and squeezed. I could not let go. How could I ever let go? Time passed in a haze. Until when the sun was beginning to set again, I heard someone shouting in the distance. I knew I had to move. I had to let them know I was there, for I would never be able to carry Havel's body alone. So I gently eased Havel to the ground. This was easier now, as I noticed the stiffness in his limbs had strangely softened since I first held him. I stood and waved my arms in the air at the figure silhouetted against the setting sun. As he neared, I recognized Abba. When he saw my face, his own instantly changed. "It is Havel," I said. When my father looked down and saw his beloved, lifeless son, he fell to his knees and cradled the body to his chest, crying in loud wails. I joined him. Putting my arms around my Abba, breathing his earthy scent and feeling his living warmth, I prayed to Elohim that he might offer us another miracle, that Havel might rejoin his body. How could we ever be a family again without the one who had held us all together? Yet he did not answer. Had Elohim left us too? At length my Abba began to speak in broken tones. "Where is Cain?" he asked. In my torment over Havel, I'd completely forgotten about Cain. "I don't know. I've not seen him," I replied. He drew Havel's body away from his chest and studied it all over. He put his fingers into the wounds created by the thorns and gently touched the bruises on his neck. Then, stroking his son's hair, he kissed his bloodied brow. "Is this where you found him?" Abba asked. "No, he was stuck in the thorns, just there." I pointed to the spot a few strides away. Abba looked at it, drew his brows together, and then carefully put down Havel's body. He began to examine the surrounding area, brushing away some of the grass and studying the ground. He picked up some of the thorns and moved them around. He rubbed grasses between his fingers, touched areas of dirt, and even smelt them. "What is it, Abba?" I asked, after I could stand watching him no longer. He turned and looked at me. The pain in his eyes seemed to have intensified, if that was possible. I could see he was hesitating before answering. "There were 2 people here, Awan. 2 track marks besides your own. 2 scents." "What do you mean, Abba?" I asked. "I hope I'm wrong, but I fear that Havel has died at the hands of Cain." "No!" My hand shot to my mouth. I could not believe it. My father stumbled back over to me and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Then he stroked the bruises on Havel's neck. "A man's hand did this. See the shape of his fingers." I looked again. The imprint was clear, but my mind could not comprehend it. Couldn't it have been a serpent? Cain had similar markings after he was attacked. Similar, but not the same, and there is no sign of a bite. It could be hidden in the thorns. Awan! I don't want to believe it either, but Cain is missing, and it is not the first time. What do you mean? Cain once attacked Shimon in the fields. In the end, he did not hurt him, but the look in his eyes, I think if Chaim and I had not been there, it could have gone differently. I shook my head and pushed my father's hand away. I could not bear the thought that my beloved Cain would do such a thing. "I have never heard this story," I protested. "Havel asked me not to tell you." I began to pace away from my father. "Awan, it's true," he called out behind me. "No, Abba, don't say it. Don't say it again. There must be another explanation. I cannot accept it." He rushed to me and grasped me. I fought him for a moment, but he did not let go. I began to shake as he held me. "I cannot, Abba, I cannot." "I know, my beautiful girl," he soothed, holding me and stroking my hair as tears streamed down his cheeks. I relinquished my fight and allowed him to cradle me as together we gave in to the sheer devastation of his discovery.
Oh, so moving.
Is everyone crying?
Yeah. There was a question from Catherine early on about what was the relationship between the protagonist and Cain and Abel.
Oh, thank you. So you may have picked that up from the reading there, that in this book the protagonist is Awan, and she is their sister. So Cain is the eldest, and I put quite a gap between his age and Havel's, and then Havel and Awan are twins, which is why they are so close, and why it's so devastating for her. It would be devastating for anyone. But
Yeah.
sad.
Lana added that she'd never thought of Cain being so old before the other children came along, and that was a really intriguing thought. I'd say I hadn't thought of that either, and I did go back and read the scripture again and thought, oh, agree,
just to check.
agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just doesn't say, and as with all these things, it just doesn't say, so I just gave my imagination free rein. But it's for the story to have a gap, so
you can do that. Katie had an interesting point hanging over from the first book there. She said, "I never found Cain unlikable either. In fact, through Cain's eyes, I found Havel or Abel could be quite annoying, stuck up and pious. There were a few times I wanted to thump him." I have to say, I agree with Katie.
Oh, Oh, that's so sad. Because I loved him and I hated killing him.
Well, it was the first murder in creation, you know, Natasha. So you should really have felt a little bit bad about it, to be fair.
But that's the problem with well, not the problem, but the
joy,
the difficulty, the joy. In writing from Cain's point of view is actually I had to make Abel annoying, otherwise Cain wouldn't have been annoyed with him, and yet I think it was, yeah, for me he was wonderful, Abel, but I had to see somebody in my mind that I'd created as wonderful through somebody else's eyes, and I had to write through somebody else's eyes. And so I guess, yeah, it'd be interesting. Different readers will see it differently. I think it probably depends what spectacles you've got on while you're reading.
Okay. So can I ask you a question about the songs?
Yes.
So there are several songs all the way through the book, and then as I follow your Facebook, there are links to things as well.
I just put
that's not you, that's Harville. So there are links to things as well. Can you tell us something about the songs?
Yes, well, I thought it might be fun to have another short, if you're up for it. Is everyone up for another short reading? Because that one was quite long. That has a song included in it.
Ooh.
Put in the chat if that's okay, or if you go, no, it's too boring, I don't want you to, put that in the chat too. But I thought I might do, so the songs, yeah, so I wrote songs before I wrote books. So I've been songwriting for about 7 years. And so really when I was writing, also what I read, I mean, my favorite book is Lord of the Rings, which is completely and utterly different from what I've written. But the way that I love the way that Tolkien weaves prose and poetry and song together. It's just so beautiful. And so I guess it just naturally came to me that I'd love to do that. And so I tried. So R1, our protagonist again in this story, I sort of pitch her as a little bit like the first songwriter. Lovely. And although actually Adam sings a song right at the beginning of The Wanderer Scorned as well. But yeah, I pitch her as sort of a person who communicates with the Lord in song. And so there's a lot of songs in The Wanderer Reborn, a lot more than in The Wanderer Scorned. Hang on a minute, I'll tell you. I've got it in the appendix at the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But there's some of them are only this big. Okay. So yeah, so lots of things. Some of those might have been poems actually. And it's just so because she communicates in music, a little bit like myself, I suppose. It came naturally to me that she would also communicate with God that way. And so I thought, well, why not write that down? So yes. Brilliant. Oh, I've just seen that Hannah's here. So would we like another slightly quicker reading?
I think so. I'm not seeing anybody leave.
Nobody's saying no. Okay. So here you go. Right. So at this point in time, there's been quite a lot of time going from what I just, it's quite a lot further on from what I just read. There's been about 11 years past since what I just read, okay? And so little Set has been born, and Set is my name for Seth, which character you all know in the scripture. Okay. One day I was in the vineyard with both children, that's Dorit and Seth. We were picking grapes and testing them for ripeness. We had a basket half full of clusters from the sunniest part of the glade, and Dorit was sitting next to it, helping herself. Occasionally she bit one in half and squeezed it to a pulp between her fingers. My brother Set, who had just started moving about, was lying on his tummy. Arms tucked under his chest and legs sprawled behind him, he was trying desperately to pull himself forward as he eyed the grapes Dorit was eating. I heard someone shout my name, and I looked up to see Hannah running towards me. "It's Abigail's time," she said, leaning over and resting her hands on her knees as she panted. "So early? How far along is her labour?" I asked, aware that I'd been out the whole morning. "The first pains only started a short while ago, but they're already intense and close together, and the baby's early. It's not yet been 8 full moons. Emma thinks it will come soon." "Carry Set," I said, kneeling in front of Dorit, who climbed onto my back automatically, aware by now of our routine. We jogged towards Abigail and Chaim's hut as quickly as we could, yet it was not fast enough. When we arrived, screams from inside were already piercing the air. Shimon must have fetched Abba because he was pacing outside with concern etched on his face. I swung Dorita round, passed her to my father, and went straight in. My mother was kneeling on the floor at the end of a limp Abigail. My younger sister was covered in sweat and tears. Her hair was damp and strewn all over her face. Blood was already seeping from her, even though the babe had not yet been born. Haim was cradling Abigail's head, and she was holding one of his hands, though it looked as if she had no strength left even to do that. His face was pale. His eyes penetrated me as I looked at him. I knew he was preparing himself for the worst. "What can I do?" I asked Emma. "Pass me that bowl of water," she said. "Then sing. Give us hope, Awan." I did as she asked. I saw a tiny head crowning between my mother's hands as I passed the water. I saw the faces of those dearest to me in the world, hopeless and filled with pain. So I lifted my quivering voice to Elohim, the deliverer. "To you, my Elohim, I call. My rock, be not deaf to me. For if you are silent, we fall. Hear now my plea for mercy. I cry to my Yahweh for grace. Don't crush this life to the ground. I lift my hands to your dwelling place. I ask that life would come down. Deliver us, deliver us, deliver us from the jaws of death. Deliver us, deliver us. In you is found all our strength. For you are the source of all life. By your breath you caused us to be. Declare your purpose and might, but this child of yours in safety. For the sake of your name, Yahweh, honor your holiness here. As we are fruitful and multiply, bless us by now drawing near. Deliver us, deliver us, deliver us from the jaws of death. Deliver us, deliver us. In you is found all our strength, all our strength. The room wasn't silent as I sang. Amid the song, Abigail felt another contraction and began to push the baby out, using all the strength she had left. Yet despite the noise, a tranquility came upon the room that had previously been absent. Abigail delivered the head with that push, and Emma turned the babe slightly, ready for the next one. I continued to sing. Chaim's soft voice joined mine, singing the words into his wife's ear as he held her weak body, willing them to give her life and strength. Abigail brightened just a little. Just a tiny amount of pink presented on her cheeks. The next contraction came. "This is the last one," Emma said softly. "Perseverance, my daughter. It's nearly over." My voice rang out as Abigail pushed and gave a loud cry. Chaim focused on the mother while Emma concentrated on the tiny baby that slid into her arms. The infant didn't cry. My mother turned her upside down and smacked her bottom. Still nothing. I'd finished a chorus, and for that moment we all held our breath, waiting for the sound of life. My mother's tears accompanied the silence. Without explanation, I knew what to do. I moved towards Emma and knelt. Laying the infant along my forearms, I lowered my face to hers and covered her nose and mouth with my lips. As if my breath could channel the ruach of Elohim, I exhaled once, twice, 3 times. The child moved, spluttered, and lastly wailed, drawing her tiny arms up and fisting her fingers in protest. My mother and I wept with relief, tears flooding our faces. "Emma," came a soft, agonized voice from the other end of the bed. We looked up. Chaim was still holding Abigail's head, but her eyes were closed, and she was limp. It looked like she'd given her child the last of her energy, and then departed. And I'm going to leave you on that cliffhanger.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, it was absolutely beautiful. It really was.
I have a really sore throat, so I'm sorry if it was really screechy.
No, it actually felt really raw and you know, yeah, as if we were there. There's a lot of comments coming through. There's a lot of requests for an audiobook with you breaking into song as you read it.
We've got some. Yeah.
What the comments are saying.
Oh, it's Maressa, isn't he?
Maressa.
It's another one. I love your singing, says Dana, and reading. You should narrate your own books and sing too. Thank you. I would love to narrate this one, actually. I don't think I can narrate the first one because it's a man talking. So I need to find somebody to do that for me.
Could you get your husband to do that one?
I think my mum did volunteer my dad. So
that would work.
When I have some time. What else have we got? Oh, good idea. Maressa. Audiobook edition.
Audiobooks, they're being requested. What can we say? Your public is requiring it. Catherine asked a question earlier on. She asked, if I can just scroll back through, she said, why did you change the names from the biblical names?
Thank you. Okay, so the initial reason that I changed the names was because I've spelt Cain, Kayin. And the reason I did that was because I really wanted to give him a chance to tell his story without it being spelt the way that we all know it. And I thought if it was Cain, we would all automatically go, oh no, or something. You know, it would just put something in our heads against the character. And I really wanted to give him a chance. And so I thought if it was spelt differently, just psychologically, it might help the reader to distance themselves slightly from what they knew and engage in a new way with the character. But of course, once I changed Cain's name, I kind of needed to be consistent and change them all. And so, so that's why I did it. But that did lead to a little bit of trickiness. Some people go, why is Eve called Chava? You know, and actually that is the Hebrew transliteration of the name, but it sounds completely different to Eve. So that confuses people.
I think Hannah's joined. Do you want to tell us a little bit about who Hannah is? And yeah,
she's got a very glamorous
role.
She
does.
Okay, so Hannah says, I should have introduced myself. I edited the book, smiley face. Very nice to read all your comments. So yes, I will admit live on air that Hannah is my sister, but she is a professional editor and she did a fantastic job, and I would recommend her to anyone if she wants more work. So, but Han actually was really gave me a very discerning eye and didn't beat about the bush and told me when things needed to be changed. So I was really grateful for that. So it wasn't a kind of, you know, oh, you're my sister, I can't, you know, tell you the truth sort of relationship. She was brilliant. So thank you very much, Han. Lots of developmental things that she helped me improve.
Excellent. Oh, yeah, someone else is still on the audiobook theme there. Lana suggested that if you're reading it, you'll get all the pronunciations exactly right. I have to say, as I was reading it, I was kind of just skipping over some of the names. I'm like, I have no idea how to say that.
Some of them are a bit
quite
tricky.
A lot in books, to be fair.
Particularly the ones beginning with CH, because that's a sound which we don't really have, and so it's quite tricky. And the one that's written Chayyim, which I would say Chayyim is not Chayyim at all. That's the one that's home. So that's the really tricky one. So yes, but I had a lovely Hebrew lesson from my friend Bobby Cole, who endorsed The Wanderer Scorn for me, and she's Jewish, and she gave me a Hebrew lesson, which was just so incredibly helpful on the pronunciations. So.
Amazing. So you mentioned they're learning these learning the Hebrew pronunciations. Would you say there was anything else that was really like a big learning curve for you in the production of these books?
Oh, absolutely everything. Yes. Where do I start? Yeah, I think learning how to publish. So when I initially finished the manuscript and I was looking at publishing options, we were still in the middle of COVID, and all of the publishing houses had closed doors effectively. So I could have gone down a hybrid publishing route, but it was because I had 2 books, it was going to be very expensive. So so I had to learn to self-publish, and that's been a real eye-opener. Wow. So, but actually, Joy, you've been incredibly helpful, because Joy has also self-published and gave me so many lovely tips. So Yes.
I do think it's a community we've found ourselves in that actually is very, very mutually helpful. And it's not as if I'm at the top of the pile, look at me. It's like, come on, let me help you up, let me help you, and let's travel together. And I do love that about this community of writers that we've found ourselves in.
Yeah, you guys have been so helpful. I definitely couldn't have done it without my writing buddies. Oh, and Maressa as me. You've done a great job with the self-publishing. Thank you. Yeah, Maressa's gone both routes. And you did as well, actually, for your first. You published your first book, didn't you? Yeah. So great.
Yeah.
Right. So we have got. Oh, I was meant to put this on absolutely ages ago, and I completely forgot. So, here we go. Giveaway. So I think most people on the chat right now, a lot of people have read it already by the sounds of things, but there's a few people that haven't, so that's exciting. So you can see on the banner, hopefully it's bringing up, we are going to do a giveaway of the book. I can only do paperbacks in the UK, I'm afraid. But if you want to, basically, that this program does a great giveaway feature. So what I think I'll do is I will leave it open on YouTube for just a little while rather than doing it right at the end, just to give a few people, because there's a few people that are going to watch it after. So we'll leave it open for them to give a few people a chance to enter that giveaway. Basically, if you're in the UK, then hashtag paperback in the comments and it will enter you into the giveaway for a paperback. You can choose. So if you haven't read The Wanderer Scorned and you'd rather get that first, then then go for it. That's completely fine. I don't mind. Or if you want The Wanderer Reborn, then go for that. If you're anywhere else, or if you just prefer an ebook, then hashtag ebook, and we can do a giveaway, and I will announce the winners probably on my Facebook page, or I think I've got all of all the names.
Marissa's also generously added a book as well. So Marissa's book Walled City is absolutely fantastic. I loved that book. It was another one of these that just kind of stayed with me. So it's not a biblical fiction, but it is a Christian fiction that's looking at really at the place of faith in a very restrictive community and a very restricted world where faith is not allowed. And I personally found it very, very challenging and kind of spent several evenings sat up very, very late reading that book. So I can recommend it wholeheartedly. So even if you don't win the takeaway, do put it on your Christmas list, because you won't regret sitting and reading that one for a couple of evenings. So
And what's really interesting about Walled City as well is that Maressa writes in the present tense, which I find really interesting. There's hardly any authors I've come across that write in the present tense, and it really draws you into the story, doesn't it? You can kind of see it all unfolding before you, which is really interesting. It's a great book. So
she also had very exciting pronunciations as well with her names. I skipped a lot of those pronunciations too. I really should get into audiobooks. It would broaden my vocabulary. My characters in my books are really, really easy names, you know.
Yeah, so real shame. I'm really sorry that Maressa's internet is like, let me see if I can put it back on. Do you want me to see if I can put you back on? No, I think she's still frozen. Well, we'll pop up. What I'll do is I will put links to all of the books in the comments after the recording, and then you can go and check out Walled City as well, because it would have been great. We really wanted Maressa to be interacting with us, but her internet's just not playing ball. So but she's done a great job, and I talked a little bit earlier about that. So I have how many minutes we got left? A few. Who would like to do a quiz? If there's no other questions, I have a little quiz which I thought might be fun. If I can get it to work. Let's see if I can get it to work. Ruth is here. Hi, Ruth. Great that you could join us. I love the early earth, developing the farming lifestyle. Yeah. Oh, there's a question. Right. Could you say anything about that side of the research? Okay, yeah. I love the internet. That's what I can say about that side of the research. Isn't it wonderful? So yes, I did a lot of research, early farming practices. I decided to make it pre-metal. And so it was really interesting to think about how on earth would people have farmed without metal? I mean, that's just crazy, right? So yeah, I did a lot of research on that, I was sort of, I also this was another place where my husband was quite helpful. He is actually a farmer's son. And so when I was running things by him, I wasn't just talking about, does a man sound like this? I was also running farming practices. Obviously, they're completely and utterly different in the 21st century than they were then. But just knowing how high, a simple question like, how high does wheat grow? A simple question. No, actually, because Cain walks through the field and I'm describing it, and I need to know how high it grows and how high it would be at harvesting time and how high it would be, earlier on in the season. And how do you test wheat to find that it's ripe?
My goodness, yeah.
Those little things like that. So little things like that he was able to tell me. So that was really cool. But mostly I was doing sort of a lot of online research, and then I would put it past him. And things like flax. How do you do flax? I watched videos on how to soak flax and do things like that. So that was fun. Oh, Christine said yes for a debut writing about Cain. Yes, it was a bit crazy. We chatted about that earlier on, Christine, about how ridiculously silly I was to choose to write in the first person as an anti-hero for my debut novel. But hopefully people enjoyed it anyway. So yeah, okay, right. Let me see if I can get this quiz. Is there's no other? That's okay. Don't worry about the hashtags. They should work, hopefully. And if they don't, I can go through it manually. Doesn't matter. Okay, let's see.
Ooh.
Ooh. There we go. Oh, you just move that. Name the animal quiz. Okay, so I need some contributions from you guys here, okay? So here we go. These are your options, okay? A, tannin. Oh, I've got 2 A's. Oh, I've got 2 B's. Forget that. Just write the answer. A, tannin. B, leviathan. C, not A, behemoth. And D, not B, serpent. Okay, these are your options. Now, as we go through, you've got to try and figure out which one's which. Okay. Creature 1. Can everyone see that? Okay. It is a herbivore. It's a land animal. It's enormous. And here's the reference from Job. All 4 of these creatures are referenced in the book of Job, by the way. That's why I picked them. Okay. Look at ... which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close-knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze. Its limbs are, I can't see the bottom of the slide.
Like rods of iron.
Thank you. Okay, so pop in the comments. Which one do you think that would be? Here are your options again. Okay, ignore the A, B, C's. Oh, we've got 3 behemoths. Anybody else? Anyone go for anything else? Leviathan, we've got Leviathan. Ooh. Oh, we've got behemoths. Yeah, okay. Looks like the behemoths are winning.
Oh, another Leviathan.
Okay, all right. So we'll go through again. So it's a herbivore and a land animal. And the answer is, I haven't done an answer slide. The answer is behemoth.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so well done, everyone who said behemoth. That will make the next one a bit easier. Okay, next one, creature number 2, is a carnivore, is a land animal, usually. The Hebrew name, anyone on here who writes biblical fiction will probably know this one, Dana, is Nahash. Okay, it has connotations of deception and divination. And the Job reference is, by his breath the skies became fair, his hand pierced the gliding Nahash. So what do we think that is? Let's see. Here we go. I can't even say Nahash. Nahash. Tannin, behemoth, leviathan, serpent. What do we reckon? Oh, we've got
The
3
serpent seems
already.
to be being popular. Mm.
Anyone disagree? Are we going with serpent? Yeah, we're going with serpent. Yes, serpent's correct. Well done. Okay, creature number 3 is a carnivore, is a sea creature, is also enormous. I will not fail to speak of blank's limbs, its strength and graceful form. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who's got any ideas for that one? Your options. Here are your options. Leviathan.
We have a Leviathan, yeah.
Leviathan. Anyone else? Oh, people aren't sure. I'll go back to what it is. The enormous sea creature. Oh, we've got Katie thinks it's Leviathan. Everyone's going. Anyone disagree? You're all on it now, aren't you? You're all on it. Yes. Yeah, it is Leviathan. Well done. Okay. All right. And I thought I'd do these because actually all of these creatures kind of feature, and that was really just a bit of fun. I only did that for fun. There wasn't any particular other reason for it, apart from the serpent, which was important. Okay, creature number 4. It can be a carnivore or a herbivore. It can be a sea or a land creature. It is a monster-like creature. And the Job reference is, am I the sea or the blank of the deep that you put me under guard? We've only got one option left, so you all know that it is tannin. Unless anyone's going to disagree.
No, we've got tannin.
All right. But it was a bit of a trick question because a tannin can actually be used of all 4 of those creatures. It refers to any kind of monster-like creature. So it could be used to describe a dinosaur or a dragon or a large snake, like a python, or a crocodile even. So in fact, it is used in Genesis 1:21. So God created giant tannin and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. So it's a class of animals rather than a specific creature. In my books, I used it to portray, all the sort of big lizards, things like that. There you go.
Amazing. That's one I hadn't heard of before. The tannin. And, there you go. Amazing.
So I think, have I forgotten anything? Let me have a look at my list. No, great. Is there any further questions, or are we good? 56 minutes. Huh?
No, I think we're doing pretty well. Just to see if I give everyone time in case there's. Katie's just asked, does tannin just mean animal?
I know. So it means specifically, a monster-like animal. So you couldn't call a mouse. You couldn't call a mouse a tannin.
Well, unless you're very frightened of them.
Yeah. So there's lots of refuges. I mean, to be honest, there is actually quite a lot of debate about this, and I went around the.
Was this one of the rabbit holes you got lost in your research?
Yeah, one of the rabbit holes I got lost in. So yes, but from all my research, this is what I sort of concluded. So it's always used of something that's a little bit scary. Okay. So that's kind of the clues. It's always used of something that's kind of powerful and scary, but it can be used of a snake. So it's not necessarily something very big, because snakes aren't that big. I mean, they can be, but yeah. So generally, most of the time used of reptiles.
And the final question, I think, is a really, really great one to end on. We are being asked about book 3.
What's book 3? Okay, so you may have noticed that really the Wanderer Reborn, because I wrote it originally as one story, as I've mentioned, it does seem to finish until the epilogue.
Yeah.
But I decided to just throw a little thing in there just to make you think, oh, there might be a book 3. So yes, there is a book 3 forming in my head. So yes,
so we're not gonna expect that one in a couple of months. We're gonna have to wait a little bit longer.
It's only in my head, and although I won't write it that quickly. I'm a bit busier now than I was in lockdown. So yeah, it will take a little while. So I'm actually bringing out a different series first, but I'm just exploring publishing options for that at the moment and finishing up the edits. So book 3 will be a while, but do keep posted. Do keep on my mailing list, and
there's more books in the works.
This space.
Brilliant. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Natasha, for giving us these beautiful books and making us rethink and making us just kind of not take for granted those things. So that's a real gift that you have, to be able to take something as old as time and refresh it in a way that really brings it alive. So thank you so much for that.
No, thank you. And thank you for stepping in as impromptu. I didn't expect this host. You've been great. So thank you.
You know, those things that we do for friends. Hey.
And thank you everyone for watching live and for all of your comments. That makes it really fun. It would have been really boring if I was just sitting here talking, not
talking to each other. No, it would have been.
Myself. But it was great to have Joy. So thank you. And so I will. So hopefully everyone's got my Facebook details. I think most of you will come through Facebook. So if you don't, just chuck me a message. Afterwards, you can do that via my website if you don't have any other details. Or Natasha at. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, look, here we go. I did have another banner for this. Whee!
My days.
There we go. Paperbacks. If you fancy buying anything for Christmas presents, the paperbacks are available directly on my website. It's free postage over £40, so you could get some for Christmas presents. And also, if you're overseas, I do actually do international postage, but it's quite expensive. So if you're overseas, you might prefer to go to Amazon or bookstores. And yes, the ebook is exclusive to Kindle, but that is my website, natashawoodcraft.com. So you can jump on there to send me your details if you want me to have them to find out about the giveaway. That would be.
Can we sign up for your newsletter there as well?
You can, thank you. Yes. So you can do that if you want to know when book 3 is coming out. Do sign up to the newsletter on the website.
I think we'll be doing that. Brilliant.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll log off then. It's been exactly an hour. Bye, everybody. Thank you.